The station's air smelled like metal and recycled sweat. Krathax walked through the crowded corridors of Mercenary Guild Station Omega-7, his massive frame forcing smaller species to press against the walls. He stood 8 feet tall, covered in chitinous black armor that was not worn but grown from his own body. 4 powerful arms hung at his sides, each capable of crushing bone with ease. Every species in the galaxy knew his name. Every government feared it. Krathax was the most feared mercenary in known space. His record spoke for itself. 247 successful contracts. Not a single failure, not one. He had burned cities, toppled governments, and broken armies. His reputation alone was enough to end wars before they began. He entered the briefing room where his handler waited. The Srith was a reptilian creature with green scales and yellow eyes that blinked sideways. The creature held a datapad in its clawed hands. Krathax, the Srith hissed in greeting. We have a contract for you. Krathax said nothing. He never wasted words on small talk. He simply waited, his forearms crossed over his chest. The consortium needs a problem removed, the handler continued. A human outpost on Arcturus Prime. They are interfering with mining operations. The consortium wants them gone. Humans? Krathax's voice was deep, like stones grinding together. It was the first word he had spoken. The Srith made a sound that might have been laughter. Yes, Deathworlders, technically. But they are new to space. Only 80 years since first contact. They have primitive weapons. Chemical explosives and ballistic projectiles. Nothing impressive. Krathax studied the datapad. The outpost housed 47 humans, a mix of miners, scientists, and security personnel. Their defensive systems were basic. Their weapons were outdated by galactic standards. This would be easy work. Perhaps too easy for someone of his reputation. The payment is low, the handler admitted, but the consortium wants to send a message. They want your name attached to this. They want other frontier colonies to know what happens when they interfere. Krathax considered this. His pride whispered that this job was beneath him. But his practical mind saw the value. The consortium was powerful. This simple task would strengthen that relationship. Future contracts would be worth far more. I accept, he said. As he turned to leave, another mercenary approached. This was Vesh, a Quilon warrior covered in scars from countless battles. Vesh was old by mercenary standards, still alive because he knew when to be careful. Krathax, Vesh said, his voice cautious. I heard you took the human contract. I did. Vesh was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke again. I fought near human space once. On the border territories. I was hired to raid supply convoys. Krathax waited. Vesh rarely spoke about past contracts without reason. We hit a transport ship, Vesh continued. It was damaged. Should have surrendered. But the humans inside kept fighting. We breached the hull. They kept fighting. We killed half their crew. They kept fighting. One human had lost both legs. He still tried to shoot at us. They don't stop, Krathax. Even when they should. Even when any sane creature would surrender. They just don't stop. Krathax studied the old warrior. He saw something in Vesh's eyes. Not fear exactly, but something close to it. Something like respect mixed with worry. You worry too much, Krathax said. They are colonists, not soldiers. Maybe, Vesh replied. But I am old because I listen when experience speaks. Humans are different. Their world made them different. High gravity, dangerous predators, diseases that would kill most species. They evolved fighting everything, including themselves. It is in their blood. Krathax dismissed the warning with a gesture of his lower arms. I have killed Krell-Hive warriors. I have destroyed synthetic legions. I have burned entire cities. A handful of human colonists will not challenge me. Vesh nodded slowly. I hope you are right, old friend. I truly do. Far across the galaxy on Arcturus Prime, Commander Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the human outpost. She was reviewing the daily reports when the communications officer called out, Commander, we are picking up increased mercenary chatter in the sector. Intelligence suggests the consortium is planning something. Sarah was a former Earth Marine Corps officer. She had seen combat during the Unification Wars. She was 38 years old, lean and muscular with short black hair and eyes that never stopped calculating. She had volunteered for frontier duty because she believed in what humanity was building out here among the stars. Have we interfered with their operations? She asked. Only when they violated environmental protocols, the communications officer replied. We reported them to the Galactic Resource Council. They received fines. Sarah nodded. She had expected this. The consortium did not like being told they could not strip mine wherever they wanted. They played by different rules than humans did. For them, profit mattered more than principles. Run enhanced security protocols, she ordered. I want sensor sweeps every 6 hours. Double the watch rotation. And pull up everything we have on mercenary activity in this sector. Names, methods, success rates, everything. Yes, Commander. Sarah pulled up the tactical display. The outpost was small. 47 people total. 15 were actual security personnel. The rest were miners and scientists. They had basic defensive shields and a few automated turrets. Nothing that would stop a serious attack. But Sarah had not survived the unification wars by having the best equipment. She had survived by being smarter, meaner, and more stubborn than her enemies. She believed in preparation. She believed in adaptability. And most importantly, she believed that humans did not have to win every fight. They just had to make sure the other side paid for their victory. 3 days later, the intelligence report came back. One name appeared at the top of the list. Krathax, the most feared mercenary in the galaxy. 247 successful contracts. 0 failures. Sarah read through his history. She studied his tactics. She watched recorded footage of his operations. He was good, very good. He relied on overwhelming force, shock tactics, and psychological warfare. Most enemies surrendered before he even fired a shot. But Sarah noticed something else. Every single one of his victories had come against enemies who valued their lives more than their mission. Species who calculated costs and benefits, who surrendered when the math stopped making sense. Humans did not always calculate that way. Sometimes they fought because fighting was the right thing to do. Sometimes they fought because not fighting felt worse than dying. Earth's history was full of last stands, Pyrrhic victories, and battles where victory was never the point. Sarah called a meeting with her senior staff. She showed them the intelligence report. Krathax is coming, she said simply. He has never failed a contract. He will not start with us, but that does not mean we make it easy for him. Her security chief, a big man named Rodriguez, spoke up. Commander, we cannot win this fight. Not directly. He will have superior numbers and firepower. I know, Sarah replied. So we do not try to win. We make him regret taking this contract. We make it expensive. We make it bloody. We make it personal. She pulled up tactical maps of the outpost. We fortify every corridor. We rig explosives at key junctions. We fight from prepared positions. We make them clear every room, every hallway, every closet. We teach them that humans do not surrender just because the odds are bad. The staff was quiet. They knew what she was really saying. Most of them would not survive. Maybe none of them would. But they would make Krathax remember them. Any questions? Sarah asked. No one spoke. They understood. They had all volunteered for frontier duty. They knew the risks. And they were all human. Fighting impossible odds was practically a cultural tradition. Good, Sarah said. Then let us get to work. When Krathax arrives, we will show him what humans are made of. The attack began at dawn. Krathax's ship dropped out of hyperspace above Arcturus Prime. It was a military-grade assault vessel, bristling with weapons. 20 elite mercenaries stood ready in the drop bay. They were a mix of species, all veterans of countless battles. Krathax stood at the front of the group, checking his weapons with his 4 hands. He carried 2 plasma rifles and 2 energy blades. His chitinous armor was scarred from 100 fights. Each scar was a story. Each story ended with his victory. Standard approach, he told his team. Orbital bombardment first. Disable their shields and communication systems. Then we drop. Fast and overwhelming. These are colonists, not soldiers. Most will surrender when they see us. His lieutenant, a Kryn warrior named Dravex, nodded. Should be easy work. The ship's weapons opened fire. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the outpost's shield generators. The humans had positioned them poorly, Krathax noted. Too exposed, too easy to target. Within minutes, the shields flickered and died. Shields down, the weapons officer reported. Communications array destroyed. Krathax gestured to his team. Drop. 20 armored figures fell from the sky like meteorites. They crashed through the outpost's outer hull, landing in the main corridor. Krathax was the first to touch ground. He expected to see frightened colonists. He expected chaos and panic. Instead, he found prepared defenses. The corridor was fortified with makeshift barricades. Humans were positioned behind them, weapons ready. They were not running. They were not surrendering. They were waiting. "Contact," one of his mercenaries shouted. Gunfire erupted. The humans were using chemical weapons, primitive by galactic standards, but they were accurate. And they were coordinated. 3 mercenaries went down in the first exchange, their armor punctured by armor-piercing rounds. Krathax roared and charged forward, firing both plasma rifles. The barricade exploded under the assault. But the humans were already falling back to secondary positions. They moved with military precision. These were not panicked colonists. These were trained fighters. "They knew we were coming," Dravex said, taking cover beside Krathax. "They were ready." Krathax said nothing. He was recalculating. This was not the easy contract he had expected. But he had faced organized resistance before. He would adapt. "Advance by sections," he ordered. "Clear each room. Watch for traps." The mercenaries pushed forward. The outpost was a maze of corridors and rooms. The humans had turned it into a fortress. Every junction was contested. Every doorway was trapped. Explosive charges hidden in walls. Collapsed corridors that forced them into kill zones. Automated turrets that fired from unexpected angles. And the humans themselves fought with a ferocity that shocked Krathax. He had seen many species fight desperately when cornered, but humans seemed to fight desperately all the time, even when they had clear escape routes. Even when surrender would save their lives. One human was pinned under rubble, his legs crushed. He still fired his weapon until he ran out of ammunition. Then he detonated an explosive charge strapped to his chest. He took 2 mercenaries with him. Another human had lost an arm. She tied a tourniquet with her teeth and kept fighting with her remaining hand. She killed 1 mercenary before finally collapsing from blood loss. After 1 hour of fighting, Krathax called a halt. His team regrouped in a secured section of the outpost. He looked at his remaining forces. 3 dead, 4 wounded. Against 47 colonists, this should not be happening. This should have been over in minutes. "Status report," he demanded. Dravex consulted his tactical display. "We have cleared maybe 30% of the outpost. Human casualties are difficult to confirm. They remove their dead and wounded. They are using hit-and-run tactics. They fall back, we advance. Then they counterattack from side passages." A message suddenly broadcast through the outpost's communication system. It was a human voice, female, calm and steady. "Krathax, I know you can hear me. My name is Commander Sarah Chen. I want you to know that I have studied every one of your contracts, every tactic, every strategy. You rely on overwhelming force and shock value. You break enemy morale and they surrender. That is how you win." Krathax listened, his forearms tense. "But we are not afraid of you," Sarah continued. "We know we are going to die today. We accepted that before you arrived. The only question now is how many of your people die with us. Every minute you waste here is a minute closer to human reinforcements. They will arrive in 6 days. Can you afford to spend 6 days fighting 47 colonists?" The transmission ended. Dravex looked at Krathax. "Is she bluffing about reinforcements?" Krathax considered this. Human reinforcements were possible. The nearest human military base was several days away. But would they really send ships to rescue a small mining outpost? It seemed unlikely, but he could not be certain. For the first time in many years, Krathax felt something he had almost forgotten. "Uncertainty. We continue," he said, "but we adjust tactics. No more careful clearing. We use heavy weapons. We bring down the ceiling on them if necessary. We end this quickly." The fighting continued. Krathax committed his full arsenal. Plasma grenades, breaching charges, heavy support weapons. The humans fell back level by level, room by room, but they made him pay for every meter. One section of corridor was rigged with so many explosives that when it detonated, it buried 4 mercenaries under tons of rubble. Another room was filled with toxic gas that melted through armor seals. The humans had worn sealed suits and waited inside. They killed 3 more mercenaries before being gunned down. And always the humans fought, even when wounded, even when outnumbered, even when there was no possible hope of victory. Krathax began to understand what Vesh had tried to tell him. These humans were different. They fought not just to survive, but to make their deaths count. They fought with a rage that seemed born from something deeper than fear or desperation. During a brief lull in the fighting, Krathax's team managed to capture a wounded human soldier. His name was Marcus Webb. He was young, maybe 25 standard years. He had been shot in the leg and could not retreat with his unit. Krathax stood over the human. "Why do you fight? Your commander admits you cannot win. Surrender and you will be treated as prisoners of war." Marcus looked up at him. Blood ran down his face from a cut above his eye. But his expression was not fear. It was something closer to contempt. "You want to know why we fight?" Marcus said. "Let me tell you about my species. We have been killing each other for 10,000 years. World wars, resource wars, religious wars. We nearly destroyed our own planet dozens of times. We invented weapons that could end all life on Earth, and we came within minutes of using them. We are very, very good at fighting." Krathax said nothing. He listened. "You think you scare us?" Marcus continued. "We have faced worse than you. We have faced ourselves. Humans have stood at Thermopylae. We have held the Alamo. We have fought at Stalingrad and Normandy and 1,000 other places where victory was impossible, but we fought anyway, not because we thought we would win, but because some things matter more than living." The young human smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "You will win this fight. You have more soldiers, better weapons, but you will remember us. Every single one of us. And maybe next time you will think twice before taking a contract against humans." Krathax left the human there. He had learned what he needed to know. These humans were not rational by galactic standards. They did not calculate odds properly. They did not value their lives the way other species did. They were, quite simply, insane. And that made them far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. By the end of the second day, Krathax had lost 11 mercenaries. His team was exhausted. The humans had fallen back to the central command area. They would make their last stand there. Dravex approached Krathax during a rest period. The Kryn warrior looked tired. All of them did. "We should withdraw," Dravex said quietly. "This contract is not worth the cost. We have already lost more than half our team. If we continue, most of us will die. The humans will die too, but they do not seem to care about that. They are willing to trade their lives for ours at a 1-to-1 ratio. Maybe worse." Krathax looked at his lieutenant. He saw fear in Dravex's eyes. Not fear of death, but fear of dying for nothing. Fear of dying to prove a point against an enemy that did not care about points. "I have never failed a contract," Krathax said. "Then start now," Dravex replied. "Live to fight another day?" This is madness, Krathax considered this. His pride demanded he finish what he started. His reputation depended on it. But Dravex was right. This contract made no sense anymore. The payment was too small for this level of resistance. But he also knew that if he withdrew now, everyone would know why. They would know that humans had made him quit. That 47 colonists had fought him to a standstill. His reputation would be damaged either way. But if he withdrew, at least he would be alive. "No," Krathax said finally. "We finish this. But we do it my way. We bring everything we have. We end this now, whatever the cost." Dravex nodded slowly. He did not look happy. But he would follow orders. Krathax looked at the tactical display. The command center was close. One final push. One final battle. Then this nightmare would be over, he hoped. The assault on the command center began at dawn of the third day. Krathax gathered his remaining forces. 8 mercenaries plus himself. 9 warriors to storm the final stronghold. Once he had commanded 20. Now more than half were dead. He checked his weapons one final time. His armor was scorched and dented. His body ached in ways it had not ached in years. But he was Krathax. He was the undefeated. He would finish this final push, he told his team. Use everything. Hold nothing back. The humans are trapped in the command center. This ends today. They advanced slowly. The corridors leading to the command center were eerily quiet. No gunfire. No explosions. Just silence. Krathax did not trust it. The humans had been fighting viciously for 3 days. They would not suddenly give up. He was right. The corridor erupted. Automated turrets hidden in the walls opened fire. Explosive charges detonated. The floor collapsed beneath 2 mercenaries, sending them falling into the maintenance level below. Krathax could hear their screams over the communication channel until the screaming stopped. His team fought through it. They destroyed the turrets. They cleared the traps. They reached the command center doors. 7 mercenaries remained. Plus Krathax, 8 total. He placed breaching charges on the door. The explosion tore it open. Smoke filled the air. Krathax charged through first, his plasma rifles ready. The command center was a circular room filled with computer terminals and tactical displays. 12 humans waited inside. They had built barricades from furniture and equipment. They were armed with every weapon they had left, guns, improvised explosives. In some cases, just knives and tools. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the center. She was covered in dust and blood. Her uniform was torn, but she stood straight. Her eyes were clear and determined. "Krathax," she said calmly, "welcome to our home. I hope you enjoyed the tour." Music suddenly blared from the speakers. It was a human war song, loud and aggressive. Krathax had learned about human music during his research. They played songs during battle, songs about fighting and dying and never surrendering. It was another aspect of their madness. "You started with 20 warriors," Sarah shouted over the music. "How many do you have left?" 8, 7? We were 47 miners and scientists. We knew we could not win. But we made you pay for every step. We made you bleed. And you know what? We are still here." She raised her weapon. "So come on then. Finish your contract. But remember this. We were farmers. We were engineers. We were teachers. We were not your actual military. If we did this to you, imagine what our soldiers would do." Krathax roared and opened fire. The command center erupted into chaos. The battle was brutal and desperate. The humans fought with everything they had. They used their knowledge of the command center layout. They triggered emergency bulkhead seals to separate the mercenaries. They overloaded power conduits to create explosions. One human, a big man named Rodriguez, charged directly at a mercenary with nothing but a combat knife. He died, but he took the mercenary with him, driving the blade through a weak point in the armor. Another human, a young woman named Kim, held a position alone for 5 minutes. She had a broken arm and was bleeding from multiple wounds. She killed 2 mercenaries before finally collapsing. Krathax fought his way through the chaos. He was wounded now. A bullet had penetrated his armor, striking his lower left arm. It was the first time in 30 years that an enemy had wounded him. The pain was sharp and real. He found Sarah Chen behind a computer console. She was firing at his remaining mercenaries. 3 of his team were down. Only 4 mercenaries remained, plus himself. 5 against maybe 6 humans, Krathax charged. Sarah turned and fired. The shot struck his chest armor but did not penetrate. He reached her and swung with his upper right arm. The blow knocked her weapon away. She fell backward. He stood over her, raising his plasma rifle. She looked up at him. There was no fear in her eyes. Only defiance. "You won," she said. "But it cost you, did it not?" Krathax pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt ended her life instantly. The fighting continued for another 20 minutes. The remaining humans fought until they physically could not fight anymore. Some ran out of ammunition and threw rocks. One elderly scientist tried to strangle a mercenary with his bare hands. When it was finally over, Krathax stood in the silent command center. Bodies lay everywhere, human and mercenary alike. The smell of blood and burned flesh filled the air. He counted his remaining forces. 3 mercenaries. 2 were badly wounded and would need extensive medical care. Out of 20 elite warriors, only 3 had survived. And they had survived fighting 47 colonists. Dravek stumbled over to him. The Kryn warrior was bleeding from multiple wounds. "It is done," he said quietly. Contract completed. Krathax said nothing. He walked through the command center, looking at the fallen humans. So many of them. They had fought with weapons that were outdated by galactic standards. They had no advanced technology, no shields, no energy weapons. They had only their courage and their refusal to give up, and it had almost been enough. He found a data pad on Sarah Chen's body. It was her personal log. He read it. The final entry was dated that morning. It read, "If you are reading this, we lost. But you paid for it, did you not? You came here thinking this would be easy, that we would surrender or run. You underestimated us because we are new to the galaxy, because our technology is primitive, because we are just colonists. But remember this, whoever you are. We were farmers. We were scientists. We were security guards. We were not soldiers. We were not your military. We were just regular humans doing our jobs on a frontier world. If we did this to you, imagine what our actual military would do. Imagine what trained human soldiers would do to you. Imagine what happens when you fight humans who were raised from birth to be warriors. You won this fight. But you lost something too. You lost the belief that we would be easy prey. You lost the comfort of thinking humans were just another weak species. You lost your certainty and we gained something. We gained your respect. We proved that humans do not surrender just because the odds are bad. We proved that we will make you pay for every inch of ground you take from us, so yes, you won. Congratulations, now try to forget us. I dare you. The log ended there. Krathax stood in the silent command center holding the data pad. The words echoed in his mind. He had won. The contract was complete. He would receive his payment, but he had also lost. He had lost most of his team. He had lost his certainty. He had lost the comfort of knowing that his reputation alone would make enemies surrender. And he knew with absolute certainty that he would never forget this battle. He would never forget these humans. He would never forget how 47 colonists had made him pay for his victory. Dravex approached. We should leave. Before human reinforcements arrive, Krathax nodded. He took one last look at the command center, at the bodies of the humans who had fought so fiercely, at Commander Sarah Chen, who had stood her ground until the very end. Let us go, he said quietly. His ship left Arcturus Prime hours later. The outpost burned below them. The contract was complete. Every human was dead. It was a total victory by any measure. But as Krathax sat in his quarters treating his wounds, he did not feel victorious. He felt tired. He felt old. And for the first time in his long career, he felt uncertain about his future. The galaxy's most feared mercenary had just learned a valuable lesson. Humans were different. They did not fight like other species. They did not calculate costs and benefits like rational beings. They fought with something deeper, something primal, something terrifying. They fought with pure, stubborn human resolve, and that resolve had nearly killed him. Station Omega-7 looked the same as when Krathax had left. The same crowds, the same smells, the same endless noise of hundreds of species conducting business. But everything felt different to him now. He walked through the corridors with his 3 surviving mercenaries. Other warriors moved aside as they always did. But now Krathax noticed their eyes. They were not looking at him with fear. They were looking at him with curiosity. With questions, word had already spread. The undefeated Krathax had completed his contract against the human outpost. But he had lost 17 of 20 mercenaries doing it. Against colonists. Against miners and scientists. The guild had been very interested in his report. Very interested indeed. He entered the payment office. The same Sereth handler was there, processing his contract completion. The credits were transferred to his account without comment. The handler did not meet his eyes. Contract completed, the handler said formally. The consortium is satisfied. They send their regards. Krathax took the payment confirmation and left. He walked to the mercenary cantina, a place where warriors gathered to drink and share stories. He needed a drink. He needed many drinks. The cantina fell silent when he entered. Every mercenary present turned to look at him. The silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then slowly conversations resumed. But they were quieter now, and he could feel the eyes on him. Vesh was sitting at a corner table. The old Quilon warrior waved him over. Krathax joined him, grateful for a familiar face. I heard, Vesh said simply. 17 dead. 17, Krathax confirmed. He ordered a drink from a passing server. Something strong. I tried to warn you, Vesh said without judgment. Humans are different. You did, Krathax agreed. I did not listen. I thought my experience would be enough. I thought my reputation would matter. I was wrong. The drink arrived. Krathax consumed it in one motion. The alcohol burned. It felt good. It felt real. They knew they would die, he said quietly. Their commander told me before the final assault. They accepted it. They were not trying to survive. They were trying to make us pay. Vesh nodded. That is the human way. They do not fight to win. They fight to make you regret fighting them at all. The guild is analyzing the battle data. Krathax continued. They want to understand how 47 colonists inflicted such casualties on an elite strike team. They are calling it economically non-viable. They are right, Vesh said. No client will want to pay the real cost of fighting humans. Not when they fight like that. Not when every victory costs more than it is worth. A younger mercenary approached their table. He was a Kryn warrior full of confidence and pride. He looked at Krathax with something that might have been pity. Is it true? The young warrior asked. Did humans really kill 17 of your team? Krathax looked at him with his 4 eyes. The young warrior flinched slightly under that gaze. Yes, Krathax said, and if you are smart, you will never accept a contract against them. Not for any amount of money, the young warrior laughed nervously. They are just Deathworlders, primitive, surely with proper tactics. No, Krathax interrupted. You do not understand. They are not like other species. They do not surrender when the math stops making sense. They do not flee when victory becomes impossible. They fight until they physically cannot fight anymore, and then they find ways to keep fighting anyway. He leaned forward. I have fought the Krellhive warriors. I have defeated the synthetic legions of Proxima. I have burned worlds and toppled empires. But humans are different. They are insane by galactic standards, and that insanity makes them more dangerous than any rational enemy. The young warrior was quiet now. He nodded slowly and walked away. Vesh ordered another round of drinks. What will you do now? He asked. Krathax was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Sarah Chen, about Marcus Webb, about all those humans who had fought so fiercely, about the datapad and Sarah's final message. I am retiring, he said finally. Vesh raised his eyebrows. Retiring? You are the most feared mercenary in the galaxy. You could name your price for any contract. I could, Krathax agreed, but I have learned something. There are enemies that should not be fought, not because they cannot be defeated, but because defeating them costs too much. It costs more than money. It costs certainty. It costs peace of mind. He finished his second drink. I will make an official statement. I will tell the guild that I will never accept another contract against humans. Not for any price. Not for any reason. And I will advise others to do the same. That will damage your reputation, Vesh pointed out. My reputation is already damaged, Krathax replied. Everyone knows what happened on Arcturus Prime. Everyone knows that 47 colonists nearly defeated me. Better to admit the truth. Better to warn others. Humans are a threat that the galaxy has not properly understood. Vesh nodded slowly. You are wise. Wisdom comes from surviving mistakes. The next day, Krathax recorded his official statement. It was broadcast across the Mercenary Guild network. Every warrior from here to the core worlds would see it. He stood before the camera in his scarred armor. His wound from the battle was still visible. He did not hide it. I am Krathax, he began. For 30 years I have been the most feared mercenary in known space. I have completed 247 successful contracts. I have never failed. I have never retreated. I have defeated armies and conquered worlds. He paused. But I have learned something about humanity that the galaxy needs to know. Humans are different from every other species I have encountered. They do not fight like we do. They do not calculate costs like we do. They do not value their lives the way we value ours. On Arcturus Prime, I fought 47 human colonists. They were miners, scientists, and security personnel, not soldiers, not trained warriors, and they killed 17 of my elite mercenaries. They made me bleed for every meter of ground. They made victory so expensive that it felt like defeat. He looked directly into the camera. I am announcing my retirement from mercenary work, and I am making this statement. I will never ever accept another contract against humans, not for any price. Not for any reason. They are too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to die just to make you suffer. I advise all mercenaries to refuse contracts against human targets. They are economically non-viable. The payment will never match the cost, and even if you win, you will lose something. You will lose your certainty. You will lose your peace. You will remember them forever. He raised one hand in a gesture of warning. Undervalue human resolve at your own risk. I did. And I will regret it for the rest of my life. The recording ended. The statement spread across the galaxy within hours. It was discussed in cantinas and command centers. Some mercenaries laughed. Some dismissed it as weakness. But others, the experienced ones, the survivors, they listened. The Galactic Mercenary Guild updated their threat assessment database. Humans were upgraded from minor Deathworld species to priority avoidance. Asymmetric warfare specialists. Recommended engagement cost was increased by 300%. Most contractors decided that was still too low. The consortium that had hired Krathax received their message, but it was not the message they had intended. They had wanted to intimidate other frontier colonies. Instead, they had demonstrated something else entirely. They had demonstrated that fighting humans was expensive, bloody, and possibly not worth the effort. Other companies and governments took note. Several planned operations against human interests were quietly canceled. It was easier to negotiate. It was cheaper to compromise. It was smarter to avoid conflict entirely. Because now the galaxy knew. Humans did not fight to win. They fought to make you regret ever fighting them at all. 6 months later, the message finally reached Earth. The colonial administration read the reports from Arcturus Prime. They mourned the 47 colonists who had died. They held memorials. They honored the sacrifice. And then the Earth Defense Forces made an interesting decision. They sent 3 dreadnoughts to Station Omega-7, not for revenge, not for war, for recruitment. The ships arrived with full ceremony. The station's sensors picked them up at the edge of the system. Massive warships, bristling with weapons painted in Earth's blue and white colors. Every mercenary on the station watched them arrive. These were not colony ships. These were not cargo vessels. These were warships. Real military vessels crewed by actual human soldiers. A shuttle departed from the lead dreadnought. It carried a single passenger, a human woman in a dark blue uniform. She wore the insignia of a recruiting officer. She requested a meeting with the Mercenary Guild leadership. She was granted immediate access. In the Guild's main conference room, she addressed the assembled mercenary commanders. Her message was simple and direct. "We heard about Arcturus Prime," she said. 47 of our people held off the galaxy's best mercenary for 3 days. They were not soldiers. They were colonists. Regular people doing their jobs, she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Now imagine what our actual soldiers can do. Imagine people who have trained their entire lives for combat, who have studied every battle in human history, who have been raised in Earth's gravity and survived Earth's environment, who carry the best weapons our technology can produce. The room was very quiet. 1 year after Arcturus Prime, the galaxy had changed. Not in obvious ways, not in ways that showed on star charts or trade routes, but in quieter, more important ways. Humans were no longer the new species. They were no longer the primitive death-worlders that could be pushed around. They had earned something far more valuable than respect. They had earned caution. The Galactic Mercenary Guild had compiled extensive data on human combat doctrine. The analysis was sobering. Humans did not fight to achieve military objectives in the traditional sense. They fought to inflict maximum cost on their enemies. They specialized in asymmetric warfare. They turned every disadvantage into a weapon. The report's conclusion was simple: avoid military conflict with humans unless absolutely necessary. If conflict cannot be avoided, expect casualties to be 10 to 20 times higher than projections. Plan accordingly. Most governments and corporations followed this advice. Disputes with human colonies were resolved through negotiation. Trade agreements were honored. Resource rights were respected. It was cheaper that way. Much cheaper. But not everyone had learned the lesson. The Zarkesh Collective was a pirate organization operating in the frontier regions. They raided cargo ships and extorted protection money from colonies. They were brutal and efficient. And they did not believe the warnings about humans. They attacked a human convoy, 5 cargo ships carrying supplies to a frontier colony. The convoy had minimal escort. Just 2 small patrol craft. The pirates expected easy prey. The cargo ships surrendered. The crews were taken prisoner. The pirates began looting the vessels. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Then the distress signal reached the nearest human military base. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 3 cruisers, 2 destroyer squadrons, a full carrier battle group. They arrived within 18 hours. The pirates tried to negotiate. They offered to release the prisoners. They offered to return the cargo. They offered compensation. The human response was simple: surrender immediately or be destroyed. The pirates refused. They had hostages. They had defensive positions. They believed humans would negotiate to save lives. They were wrong. The human fleet attacked. It was brutal and efficient. The pirate ships were destroyed within minutes. The base they operated from was reduced to rubble. When the dust settled, the Zarkesh Collective had ceased to exist. Every ship destroyed. Every base eliminated. Every member either dead or captured. Some of the hostages died in the fighting. The humans mourned them, but they did not hesitate. They did not negotiate. They simply eliminated the threat with overwhelming force. The message spread across the galaxy faster than light. Humans did not negotiate with pirates. They did not pay ransoms. They did not accept threats. They responded with total destruction. Piracy near human space dropped by 90% within 3 months. Krathax watched these events from his retirement home on a quiet world far from the shipping lanes. He had taken his earnings from decades of mercenary work and bought a small estate. He spent his days reading, thinking, and trying to forget, but he could not forget. The memories of Arcturus Prime haunted him. Sarah Chen's final words, Marcus Webb's defiant smile, the sound of humans fighting even when they had no hope of victory. He received messages occasionally, old comrades checking on him, young mercenaries asking for advice, and always the same questions about humans. Should they accept contracts against them? What tactics worked best? How did one defeat them? His answer was always the same: you do not defeat humans. You survive them. You avoid them. You negotiate with them, but you do not fight them unless you have no other choice. And if you must fight, you prepare to pay a price that will haunt you forever. One day he received an unexpected visitor, a human woman in a dark blue uniform. She introduced herself as Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Forces. Krathax invited her into his home. He offered refreshments. They sat in his garden overlooking a peaceful valley. "Why have you come?" he asked. "To thank you," she replied. Krathax was confused. "Thank me? I killed 47 of your people." "You did," Morrison agreed, "and they knew they would die. They accepted it. They chose to make their deaths count. And because of their sacrifice, because of how hard they fought, you taught the galaxy to fear us. You taught them that fighting humans is expensive and bloody and not worth the effort." She leaned forward. "Your statement after Arcturus Prime saved lives. Human lives. Because of what you said. Governments hesitate before threatening us. Pirates avoid our ships. Mercenaries refuse contracts against us. You gave us something we could not have bought with weapons or diplomacy. You gave us a reputation." Krathax was quiet for a long moment. "I did not intend to help you. I intended to warn others." "I know," Morrison said. "But the effect is the same. The galaxy now knows that humans are dangerous. Not because we have the best technology. Not because we have the largest fleet. But because we refuse to quit. We refuse to surrender. We refuse to accept defeat as long as we can still fight." She stood to leave. Commander Chen left a message in her log. She said that if you were reading it, she hoped you would remember them, all 47 of them. I came to tell you that we remember them too. They are heroes now, martyrs who showed the galaxy what humans are capable of. Krathax walked her to her shuttle. Before she boarded, he spoke again. "I will never forget them," he said. "They changed me. They showed me that there are things more important than victory. Sometimes survival is not the goal. Sometimes making the enemy pay is enough." Morrison nodded. "That is the human way. We do not always win, but we always make it count." She departed. Krathax watched the shuttle rise into the sky. He thought about Sarah Chen and her determination, about Marcus Webb and his defiant words, about all those humans who had fought so fiercely against impossible odds. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson at Arcturus Prime. Humans could be defeated. But the cost of defeating them was so high that victory became meaningless, and that made them more dangerous than any species with better weapons or bigger fleets, because humans did not fight to win. They fought to make you regret fighting them at all. 5 years later, the Mercenary Guild held its annual conference on Station Omega 7. Thousands of warriors gathered to share intelligence, negotiate contracts, and discuss the state of the galaxy. A new item had been added to the threat assessment board. It was permanently displayed in the main hall where everyone could see it. Species, humans. Classification, priority avoidance. Threat level maximum. Engagement recommendation. Refuse all hostile contracts. Negotiate when possible. If combat unavoidable, expect casualties 20 times higher than standard projections. And at the bottom of the assessment, in bold letters, was a quote from the most feared mercenary the galaxy had ever known. "Undervalue human resolve at your own risk. They will make you regret every assumption." Krathax's young mercenaries read that warning and wondered if it was exaggerated. Veterans read it and nodded. They had heard the stories. Some had even been there, had fought alongside or against humans. They knew the truth: humans were different. They fought differently. They thought differently. They valued things differently. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not the strongest. Not the smartest. Not the most advanced. But the most dangerous. Because they never gave up. Never surrendered. Never accepted defeat as long as they could still make their enemy pay. And in a galaxy full of species that calculated odds and minimized costs, that made humans absolutely terrifying. On Earth, in the Military History Museum, there was a new exhibit. It honored the defenders of Arcturus Prime. 47 names were carved into black stone. Above them was a simple inscription. They fought not to win, but to ensure the galaxy would remember. They gave their lives so that others would live in peace. They showed the stars. What humanity is capable of when pushed too far. Students visited the memorial. They learned about the battle. They learned about Sarah Chen's tactics and Marcus Webb's defiance. They learned about Rodriguez's charge and Kim's last stand. They learned that sometimes losing was a kind of winning, and they learned the most important lesson of all: never underestimate human resolve. Because that resolve had changed the galaxy. It had made humanity a power that other species feared and respected. It had saved countless lives by making war against humans too expensive to consider. The 47 colonists of Arcturus Prime had lost their battle. But through their loss, humanity had won something far more valuable. They had won the right to be left alone, the right to build their civilization without constant threats, the right to expand among the stars without fear, because now everyone knew fighting humans was possible. Defeating humans was possible, but the price was so high that it was better to negotiate, better to compromise, better to find peaceful solutions. The galaxy had learned to fear human resolve, and that fear brought peace. On his quiet estate, Krathax sat in his garden and watched the sunset. He thought about his long career, about all the battles he had won, about all the enemies he had defeated, but he thought most about Arcturus Prime, about the 47 humans who had taught him the most valuable lesson of his life. That some enemies cannot be defeated through strength alone, that some spirits cannot be broken, no matter how much force you apply.